Hello, this is Kathy Thompson, and I'm going to do a short tutorial for you on Desmos. So Desmos is an online platform for a graphing calculator and for some really neat classroom activities that you can do in your class. First, we're going to look at some of the graphing calculator features, and then we'll look at a couple of the classroom activities. Desmos also has apps for both Android and Apple phones, so you don't always have to have the online access. So if we go to the graphing calculator, it's very, very easy to use. I can start by just typing in, I can just type in some math. I can type in 6 plus 7, and it'll give me the answer here. So it's not just for graphing. It works just like a regular calculator too. Okay, but if we want to graph something, I can type in, how about just a horizontal line, y equals 3. As I keep typing, it will change the graph. So y equals 3x. Now it's not a horizontal line anymore, and I can, 3x plus 3. I can go back and change the x to x squared. If I want to change the x to x squared, I can bring up the keypad here and use the squared that way. Or I can use kind of like the standard keyboard, which is the caret button, and I can do my squared that way. So you can use this pop-up keyboard down here, or just use your regular, typing. Nice thing about the Desmos calculator that is different than a regular handheld calculator is that the equations the students type in don't have to be in the y equals form. I can type in a line in standard form, for example, 3x plus 2y equals 6. Okay, so it doesn't have to be in that y equals form. I can also type in, doesn't have to be a line, or it doesn't have to even be a function. I can type in a circle, 3x squared plus 2y squared equals 6. Or not, that's an ellipse. Or there's a circle. I can do some transformations here and move my circle around. So it's really neat how it changes the graph as the students are typing, so they can see what is happening as they're typing it in and how the transformations occur. So that is the graphing calculator. I guess one more thing, it will also do inequalities, which aren't that easy to do on a handheld. So there's y's less than 4. If I go back and just type the less than button and then the equal to button, it's very intuitive. It automatically changes that to a less than or equal to. You can also, it will read words you want to type in. So if I want 4 pi, I will just type the letters pi, and it turns it to a pi. And so now we have that graph. And you can just click and drag the graph. So there's my graph there. And it turned, of course, into a solid line because I changed it to less than or equal to. So that's some of the graphing calculator features. Now let's go back to Desmos.com and look at some of the classroom activities. So here now I'm going to click Classroom Activities. Okay, and I am already logged in here as myself. I have an account created, of course. And so it has some featured collections here. So these are collections, pre-canned collections that they have put together. So let's say if we want to do exponential functions. So it has several kind of already grouped together for you if that's the topic that you want to search. You can also search up here. Let's say trigonometry. So here are some trigonometry activities. So you have the search bar up here, or you can search through the collections. I'm going to look at my own collection. So your activities here, these are my own collections, not activities I've created, but activities that I have found and added to my classrooms. So these are my 4 classes that I teach, and I'm going to go to my math analysis class and look at a couple of the activities here. So the first one I want to show you is called the polygraph. So you can see polygraph here, there's a polygraph here, there are several polygraphs. So Desmos makes these polygraphs under many, many topics. And what they are, it's almost kind of like a matching battleship game where it pairs students with other students in the class, and they have to ask yes or no questions in order to find the right graph. So these are the pictures, these graphs that the students would see, and they ask yes or no questions to narrow down to which graph, kind of like I said, playing battleship. So when you find an activity you want to do, you click on this Create Class Code, which I have already done. So here's my class code for this activity that I did a while ago at the beginning of the year. So if I click on View Dashboard, this will show me my students' results. This is the screen you put up first for the students, so they would get their devices. I usually use iPads for these. So they would go to this website and type in this code to get to the activity. Okay, and so here are my students, and here are their questions and answers for the activity. So for example, if I click here, these two students, Nora and Caitlin, were paired together, and these are the yes-no questions that they asked. Is it any ellipse? No. Parabola? No. Are the angles wide? So that's angles wide is obviously quite vague. So we have a discussion about how can we reword that to make it a better question so that she would know the answer. Is the vertex at the origin? So really good vocabulary discussions here. Here's, I'll show one more. Simon and Nella. Okay, here's some more I don't knows. So is it opening upwards? Is it a hyperbola? So we need to talk about what a hyperbola is. The opening upwards, we talk about concavity and things like that. So it really starts really good vocabulary discussions. So that's a polygraph. And again, they have those for many, many different types of activities or topics. So I'm going to show another activity because I want to show the feedback on the dashboard. So I'm going to go back to my collections. Okay, math analysis again. This time I want to look at this one here. So we had started trig graphing in this class and transforming our trig graphs. So this is one I used to introduce period changes. So again, this is what you would see first. As the teacher, you would come down here and, of course, try the activities first yourself. They're very interactive. Again, these work on iPads and laptops. Many of the activities work on phones, but not all of them. The students can type in free response answers to things, explain. There's a lot of explain and justify. Sometimes they have to just type in an equation. Okay, so I would, again, create a class code, which I did. My students just did this the other day. So I'm going to view my dashboard again. Okay, they would type in this code, and here are the results. So for screen one, here's summary. So for slide one, all of my students completed that slide. Here, all students completed. Here, looks like 1, 2, 3 students got this one wrong. The rest of them got it right. So I could talk to those students. I can click and see what that student did. Okay, and talk to that student individually. So here, she did not have the right equation here. If she did, these two graphs would have coincided. So I can walk over and talk to Brooklyn immediately. I don't have to wait till she goes home and does the homework and comes back tomorrow for me to find out that she's got a mistake here. So I can also click on this screen. So for each slide, here I can see exactly what my students did on their own graph. You can see how they're all different. Here's Brooklyn, Carter, Cassandra. So they all did something a little different, and I can read what they typed in for their response. Okay, I can check to see if they're using the right vocabulary. I can look for common themes that maybe many students are getting right or wrong and talk to the whole class. I can put this screen up on my smartboard at the front of the room. And here's the really neat thing that we can do over here, because I might not want my students all seeing what the others did or wrote. So I can anonymize, and this is really neat. It changes all of my students' names to famous mathematicians and scientists. So here's Johann Kepler here. So they really like seeing who they're going to be that day, what famous mathematician. And so now I can have this up, as I said, on my front screen in front of the room, and I can point out mistakes without, anybody being embarrassed because it's not that person's real name. If I hover over it, it will tell me the name though, so I know which student I need to address, even though the class doesn't know who maybe is making a mistake. So I can do this slide by slide. I can see how they're doing, if they typed in the right equation. Okay, and then towards the end of this activity was kind of neat. So the students had to drag the points to build their own function. Okay, so they could drag like this. Okay, the purple one here changes the amplitude, the green one changes the period. So they had to create their own graph. Okay, and then it was paired with another student in the class who then had to write an equation for that graph. So students can work at their own pace. Maybe not everybody got to this slide, but for those who went through pretty quickly and were doing okay, when they got to the end, then they got to create their own graph and their own equation for a classmate. So in that way, it's a little differentiated where they can work at their own pace and get to some of the harder questions at the end. So thanks for listening. I hope you'll give Desmos a try.